is Namibia, a land of astonishing natural wonders.
Oh, look at that.
And in some tribal areas, water can be scarce. Life can be transient and nomadic. So women clean themselves with ground rock and rancid butter fat.
It kind of smells like sour fat mixed with eucalyptus.
And they are unencumbered by modern sexual taboos.
Edison's mom just hit on me. That's awesome.
This is where hunting a 600-pound wildebeest means great eating. But first, you have to butcher it in the wild.
Do you want me to cut the balls off first?
It's where baymen haul up thousands of giant oysters every day, but never eat any of them.
What union do you belong to? The Siemens Union. Which one? Of course. The lazy one. Of course.
And where backyard restaurants are named for the look on this animal's face.
That is a smiley.
That is a smiley, all right.
And smileys aren't the only delicacies on the menu.
This is going to be messy.
I'm Andrew Zimmern. And this is Bizarre Foods. It happens suddenly, right in front of you. A fascinating friend, an amazing meal. And before you know it, you're alive in a way you never imagined. I live for those moments, pursuing the exotic and unfamiliar, especially when it comes to the food. If it looks good, I eat it. I first land in Windhoek, the capital and largest city of Namibia. And smack in the middle of this surprisingly modern downtown is a living reminder that ancient ways of life still exist here. These are the women of the Himba tribe. They occasionally come to the city for a few days to sell handmade crafts and then return to their villages in the northern Namibian deserts. That's where I'm headed, to visit this remote pastoral people, practically untouched by modern life, who take only what the land provides and survive with a generous and joyful spirit. Namibia is one of the few places left on Earth where you can step back into a bygone era, traveling in reverse through time. By starting in the present, here, in the modern city of Windhoek. Back to the apartheid-era townships, which look much as they did in the mid-1900s during the South African occupation of Namibia. And then back further to the colonial period, which left behind the dresses still worn by tribal women converted by 19th century missionaries. And finally, I visit the Himba, who cling to the oldest traditions of humankind. They all coexist here, alongside the world's most magnificent animals roaming freely and the inspiring landscapes of vast deserts and towering sand dunes. Namibia is in southern Africa. It's one of the world's youngest republics, having gained independence in 1990 from South Africa, which sits on Namibia's southern flank. Angola and Zambia are to the north, Botswana to the east, and the Atlantic Ocean to the west. My first step, going back 60-odd years to the apartheid-era township of Katatura. Tega Shimi Yashimi is my guide to Katatura. He grew up here when Namibia was occupied by South Africa and black Namibians were forced to live in this segregated township. Showing me around the old neighborhood is a nostalgic experience.
Growing up over here, there weren't any paved streets. The trees are still the same, but they're pretty much your houses were like a two-bedroom, one kitchen, outside bathroom facilities.
But both the township and Tega have changed. Tega is an international businessman and philanthropist, but still goes to Katatura for the foods of his childhood. He takes me to the township's most complete eatery. It's run by a woman everyone just calls Gracie. The restaurant is a Smiley Den, and they're very popular here. The name Smiley Den comes from, you guessed it, these. Goat, sheep, and cow heads. Hair singed off, teeth brushed. Grilled and stewed whole, served with a side of old hoof, if you please.
Now, this is something that you don't see every day, and I kind of see this every day. Some days more than others, I feel like I've fallen down the same hole that Alice went down, and everything is just completely topsy-turvy.
Gracie is from the Herero tribe, related to the Himba, but their attire is centuries apart. Many Herero women wear Victorian-era styles brought here more than 150 years ago by European Christian missionaries. They wanted the tribal women to cover their bodies and adopt European dress along with their religion. Their hats are quintessentially African, horn-shaped, to pay homage to the cow, a sacred animal in Herero tribal tradition.
Have I told you how beautiful you look today in your dress?
Yes, you tell me already.
Yes, you
but
do.
Tell me again.
You do. You look gorgeous.
Yes.
Gracie is a success story. She's created a thriving enterprise employing 17 people.
I want to be on the top of the world. To show the world there's a woman in Katutura.
She's been awarded both Businesswoman and Chef of the Year in the past decade. Gracie sets up a buffet every day for locals and a very few brave tourists.
This is the children's portion.
The big smiley. The nice part of the cow head, tongue.
My grandmother would agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is cow stomach and potatoes.
Oh, boy. I may never forgive myself.
And the cow's feet are ready after hours of scorching, grilling, scraping, and stewing.
Yes, that's what I want. I want the tendon. That looks super. Perfect. Perfect. Let's not go too crazy.
But it does get crazier. Gracie offers me this. I think it's rancid fat drippings mixed with milk fat.
A giant 64-ounce blue mug of congealed fat.
Put that in your bread.
You know something? I would love to, but I'm just not. Have I told you, by the way, how good you look today in that dress?
You tell me already.
I did, didn't I?
Yes.
You look beautiful.
Most folks dine outside. Tega and I get a special invitation to the living room.
It's just really daily good food and daily living. But now there's a market for, because there's a bit of a commercial aspect toward that, and that's amazing.
And so is the food.
If you say a little bit of bread, a little bit of tongue, and a little bit of this fatty, whatever the heck it is, it's like cow foot jam. The tongue is beautiful. I mean, you can really taste that it cooked inside the head. Little skin, little tendon. You guys eat the tendon too?
Mm-hmm. You saved that for last, actually.
Do you? This is not food for beginners. Whew. Thank you very much. That was good. Can I be honest with you, though? The tongue was fantastic. The knuckle, different. This stuff is not for the faint of heart. This was hard, even for me, but I'm glad that I tried it. Have I told you yet that you look beautiful in that dress? You do.
And when I reach the Himba tribe, one-pot cooking takes on a whole new meaning.
Yeah. We usually take the fur off.
But first, eating worms Namibian style isn't for everyone.
Can I eat this like this? It's good? It's not gonna kill me? Oh, my Lord.
Sunrise in the Katutura township of Namibia, where the buildings that apartheid built still stand. But a lot has changed here since liberation in 1990, like the Oshetu market across the street. Though the market is relatively new, built in 2005, the food is not. Here, you can literally eat the history of the African tribes, whose descendants bring traditional foods to the city.
Keep the change.
Like dried mopani worms, a caterpillar that feeds on the mopani tree. They are a staple of the Ovambo tribe, sometimes called the Oshuvambo, which is also the name of their language. Throughout history, the worms have been an important source of protein across southern Africa.
Now, mopani worms in general are okay. One that still has all the sour, dried wood mulch inside its stomach, fantastic. Huh. Oh, hard to chew, harder even to swallow. I'm definitely going to pass on eating the other half of this mopani worm. But as always, Anytime a big white guy leans over and grabs a dried mopani worm and makes a face like this one, there are always some people willing to have a laugh at him.
You'll find people and foods all over the market with Ovambo roots. Like this stuff, dried salted catfish, which historically has been essential for some northern Namibian cultures.
It's sort of like a spoiled fish chip, is really what it is.
Drying fish is the only way to preserve it during the high flood season. Without this, many would go hungry.
A food of subsistence, a food born of necessity, a piece of food that you eat not because you want to, but because you have to. You want some fish? Here. And for the Oshavambu that have moved down into the city, it's here because they grew up on it. What do you think? It's pretty good, huh? Pound it. Pound it. Don't leave me hanging. See you guys later. Nice to meet you.
I could spend all day hanging out with these kids. But then I'd be missing the main event out front, Kapana. It literally means burning meat. And having seen this on other trips and resisting temptation long enough today, I succumb.
I love the smell of meat burning in the morning.
The customer stands at the grill and eats, and then pays for what he consumes, about 50 cents a serving.
And look at that. You just roll it in crushed chilies and sea salt. Amazing. And here's that meat from the skirt. Oh. Melts in your mouth.
There are nearly 25 grills, and behind each one is a guy butchering a freshly killed animal. Customers start showing up at breakfast time, and the stalls sell out by 2 p.m. This is grass-fed beef from cows who've never seen an antibiotic.
Any cut you want, cooked the way you want, crisp the way you want. You're not at a table tucked off in a corner all by yourself. You get to hang out with the boys. How often do you come to eat a meal like this? How many times a week?
3 times a week.
3 times a week. All right. So here's the deal. You guys eat the rest of that. I got to pull the ripcord because I basically have stuffed myself on grilled meat. Walk away, Andrew. Walk away.
Eating this way is the updated version of butchering and cooking your kill in the African bush. I get my chance to track and hunt wild game with some nasty surprises.
100 degrees, baking under the sun, cleaning out a wildebeest poop chute by hand.
As I make my way to visit one of the most primitive peoples on Earth.
Nice to meet you.
6 a.m. on the central plains of Namibia. This is a desolate range of desert and scrub, home to vast herds of roaming African game, which made it the perfect hunting ground for generations of African tribesmen, using arrows and spears, taking only what was needed for survival. These days, it is man ensuring the survival of the animals, protecting them from poachers and culling the herds through controlled supervised hunts. The supervisor has to be sure the hunters can hit their mark. And the hunter can choose his rifle. My aim passes the test, but the second rifle has a very short stock and a long scope. So, the first blood drawn today is my own.
It's one thing to get out in the bush. It's another thing to hurt yourself during the sighting process.
Now the real hunt is on. The animals are easily scared off by the slightest noise or obvious movement.
See, they're running this way now.
This is not a game farm where animals are easy prey. It's the 400,000-acre Dordabas Conservation Area at the edge of the Kalahari Desert. You'll find a rich palette of wildlife here, including warthogs, wildebeest, zebra, and these guys.
Giraffes in the wild. What beautiful animals.
Matthias Theophilus is a supervisor on the preserve. He comes from the Ovambo tribe, renowned for their skill as trackers and hunters. Throughout history, they hunted with poison arrows, changing to rifles in the 1960s. There are also fewer places to hunt now as the government set aside thousands of acres for national parks for protecting and observing the animals.
You're looking at us already.
It's just old-school Ovambo bush stalking, entirely on foot in the 95-degree temperature. Matthias says this makes the hunt more sporting and fairer for the animal. It also means there's no guarantee we'll bag anything. Tracking lesson number 1, learn their droppings.
That's a zebra. That's what a zebra. Fresh.
You have to learn your poop to track.
By testing the wind, gauging droppings, and analyzing tracks, Matthias is able to vector us in to see just about any animal in the park, but not close enough for a shot.
Because of that dog behind me, I just go slowly.
Tracking this way is not easy or fast.
Carrying a 20-pound gun and walking, squatting, all your muscles are tensed.
And it takes several hours of coming close and backing off before Matthias spots a possible target. A solitary blue wildebeest, separated from the rest of his herd. We're about 150 meters out, and my first shot was a hit. Even from this distance, Matthias can tell what part of the wildebeest the bullet struck just by the sound of the impact. And he says it's down.
This is the biggest game I've ever shot.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Matthias radios in the cavalry. We're in a race against cheetahs or jackals that may be attracted by the scent.
This is
Heavy.
Let's go.
The wildebeest has to be moved to a watering hole where there is some shade. I've butchered and skinned plenty of animals in my day, never a 600-pound wildebeest. And this is going to be messy. This is going to be messy. So if things make you squeamish, now may be the time to look away. Do you want me to cut the balls off first?
Yeah, you can cut the balls off.
Just off?
Off, yeah.
Oh, God.
But I'm in it for an authentic bush experience. And now up. In the hour and a half, 2 hours that it's taken to transport the animal over, it started to bloat. So that's why there was so much pressure on this, and the touch of my knife just made it go whoosh.
Yeah, of course.
It's really easy to spend 20 years on TV, in magazines, on radio, saying get close to your food source. Nice. Really getting close to your food source sometimes is a little trickier than talking about it. It may seem graphic, but in a country where every scrap of protein is precious, it's important to do as good a job as possible. Okay, so there's the spleen, there's the liver, even the large intestine will be used. That's a nice aroma. Turning it inside out is the best way to empty its contents. Please tell me that this is some Oshavambu like test of manhood and I pass at the end of this, because
Yeah, we see they begin to drop now.
thanks. Something tells me I'm going to get to eat this in a little while. Do you eat this? Oh, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course. Do you want to say? I love you. I love you. On the sidelines, the crew has been preparing us a traditional Ovamba smorgasbord. We're donating almost all the meat to a nearby orphanage. But first, I get to eat some for lunch, including a porridge made from the African mahungus grain. It's like cornmeal, just a bit more firm. Matthias likes his with a dried spinach compound called oshithema. This tastes like 15 pounds of sort of like rotted dry grass, compressed and dried. I can do 2 bites of it. I'm not doing a third. No way. This is horrific. Then we start in on our wildebeest with that large intestine I so delicately cleaned out. Yeah. On its own, it's a little chewy. It's not poopy at all. You did a great job cleaning it. And finally, a treat traditionally reserved for the Ovambo hunting party. Wildebeest stomach stuffed with the eyes and heart, cooked on the open ash. Now,
Do you guys eat the eyes?
Yeah.
I generally like eyeballs, but never had one this big cooked so briefly.
That's not good. It's like a greasy, fatty, plasticky piece of someone's flip-flop that tastes gamier than any other piece of this animal that we've had so far. That's hardcore.
Even an undercooked eye can't spoil this day for me. Tracking, hunting, eating the way Matthias's people have been doing for centuries.
Thank you very much. That was a wonderful day. I love it.
Hunting is just the tip of the tribal iceberg when you travel to more remote corners of Namibia, with plenty of surprises for me.
Oh, your mom is going nuts.
And next, oysters so big, I almost gag on them. They call it the Namib. Towering dunes and sweltering heat make this one of the most stunning but inhospitable places on Earth. It's where contemporary culture collides with the timeless and forbidding landscape. Dune boarding has made this desert the extreme sport capital of Namibia, and it is just half an hour from the coast. Namibia's modern seafood industry is also flourishing here. You'll find frigid Atlantic Ocean waters washing up on the shores of former colonial outposts. The port town of Walvis Bay, halfway up Namibia's western coast, was colonized by a succession of European powers since the 1890s, drawn by its strategic location, natural deepwater harbor, and abundance of whales and fish. I'm joining the modern-day incarnation of those colonial mariners, with a crew whose mission is to rotate thousands of cages chock full of oysters. It's strenuous and demanding work.
Oh! There you go. You ready?
Yep.
Okay.
Henning Duplessis is the captain of this boat. He and his crew of 4 are responsible for nearly 3,000 floating oyster cages. His family moved to Walvis Bay from South Africa. Henning's been in the oyster business for 25 years and seen Namibia's commercial aquaculture grow exponentially.
Wait. Now, underneath.
Oh, it's that gosh darn underneath part.
Juvenile oysters are known as spat and are grown in specialized labs. Imported from Chile, the spats start off tiny. You need a microscope to see them. After about 6 weeks growing in the lab, they're transferred to Walvis Bay. It takes just 9 months feeding in the algae-packed water for the oysters to mature enough for export to Asia. That's faster than just about anywhere else in the world.
We had guys here doing research, and they say that they can do experiments here in 6 weeks that they take in other parts of the world would take them 6 months to do.
That's fantastic.
Phenomenal growth rates.
Right.
The reason? Southwesterly winds bringing Antarctic currents packed with plankton and algae to the bay. The nutrients that mollusks need to thrive. Today, we're pulling up oysters to clean and rotate them and tossing them back in the bay.
They have to clean the algae. It grows so quickly on those cages. They need free-flowing water to promote optimal oyster growth.
Me? I'm still trying to figure out the knots.
Help me out here, because I don't know a clove hitch from a
Robinson.
From a reverse Robinson.
In all, there are 18 lines, each with 150 baskets.
And we've done how many so far?
Putting back about 40.
It's going to be a long day. 1, 2, 3.
Getting there.
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Union says that I get a 15-minute break, though, after 6 baskets.
What union do you belong to? The Seamen's Union. Which one?
Of course I
The
do.
lazy one.
Of course I may not be the best guy that you've ever hired, but I'm the first
You're the most talkative one.
What can I say? I'm a talker first, oysterman second.
I did 4 baskets. Those things weigh 80, 90 pounds. I think I'd do okay for about another 20 minutes. I finally got it right on the last one.
Perfect.
But the rewards are delicious, which I see after Henning steers towards one of his top secret oyster cages.
The oysters we're going to get now, they've been with me for 4 years. So
Big ones.
they're my special ones.
After days of eating meat to the exclusion of almost anything else, I am ready for some shellfish.
Look at that. That is fantastic.
It's good. You're going to have the aftertaste.
That was about a ½ pound of oyster. Fantastic. It's very sweet, very melony up front, very briny, very intense on the backside.
Oysters are not indigenous to Namibia, and the local guys who do all this work to grow them can't stand the taste.
You guys don't eat oysters, do you? No. Guys, thank you very much. This is awesome. Thanks for letting us hang with you for a day.
It's a far cry from this day on the water to my next stop, deep in the northern desert of Namibia, experiencing life in an ancient culture firsthand, along with some bizarre foods firsts.
Edison's mom just hit on me. That's awesome. Okuhepa. I guess I still got it.
Northern Namibia, a land untouched by time. Animals in the wild, roaming on meandering riverbeds, arid deserts and sandy plains, alongside a semi-nomadic pastoral people known as the Himba. I've waited all my life to visit with these people whose present is a distant past for the rest of us, a glimpse into an ancient civilization. A charter plane is the quickest way north, so my crew and I board a 9-passenger Cessna and take off from an old uranium mine close to Swakopmund to fly up what's called the Skeleton Coast.
So named because of all the thousands of shipwrecks over the years, any survivors would crawl up onto the beach here and find themselves faced with thousands of square miles of some of the harshest desert on the planet. So when rescuers came, all they found were skeletons.
The landing strip looks like it's in the middle of nowhere, but this is the tiny town of Puros.
This is the only shop available in the radius of 110 kilometers.
My production guide, Pierre, helps prep me for the visit. The tribe itself staunchly resists outside influences, and the government helps protect the Himba by limiting what can be brought into the village, including any food not native to the area. But that does not mean a guest should come empty-handed.
If you look at what is available here, this is what the people live off. There's no extra necessities that they need.
When you show up in a village, one of the things that they absolutely love is smoking tobacco.
Shopping isn't so easy when you have to walk across the desert to carry everything you buy. Fortunately, we get to go by jeep to the Himba village. Fewer than 50,000 Himba survive today. Many were wiped out in the last 100 years by war and drought. Some avoid all contact with the outside world, but this small group allows visitors, which helps them pay for the few supplies they need. Most of the men are away for months herding livestock. The women, well, they do just about everything else, including building the log kraal to keep out predators and these mud and dung huts.
I love the feel of stepping back in time and seeing how people used to live. And the fact that there's some people tenaciously hanging on to this, despite the challenges of the landscape, as well as the bulldozer of modern life.
My guide, Edison Kasupi, was born here. He straddles both worlds, ancient and modern. His father chose Edison to be the one to get the single tribal scholarship to college. He works for the Himba Conservancy now, protecting the Himba and explaining their customs to outsiders like me.
So you need to greet them, shaking hands for 3 times.
Nice to meet you.
I need to work on my Himba handshake technique and learn the rest of the rules.
As you are not a part of the family,
Right.
then you are not allowed to move between the holy fire, the surrounding stones, and the crowd in the center.
The holy fire stays lit all the time and symbolizes the Himba's link to their ancestors. It is tended by the head man, Benson Chavinda. Would you please tell Benson that I'm extremely grateful that he has allowed me permission to spend time here. First, the common language of gifts, presenting the tobacco and maize. I want to learn more about these people, as I always do, through food. And they're curious about me, watching to see if I'm willing to eat their porridge made of maize and sour milk. Thank you very much. This is a precious commodity in this country, and the people here, the Himba, as you can see, live very, very modestly, so this is a real treat. Chicha. This is fermented cornmeal, and they use the milk to thicken it, the sour milk to thicken it. I've had a lot of sour milk in Africa with different tribes. I like it better.
That's good, yeah. They say if you taste their food, you like being with them.
I love being with them. The reward for me is learning about a culture that may not exist much longer for a couple of reasons. First, a universal paradox. As more Himba send their children to school in Puros, the kids in Western clothes go there already. They'll grow up to be like Edison, willing to visit here, but never coming home to live a pastoral life. The second threat is external. A couple hundred kilometers away, they're trying to put in a hydroelectric dam, and you know, on one hand, this part of the world needs that. On the other hand, it's going to displace grazing and pastoral lands that are used by the Himba and other tribes around here. But these people live very much in the moment, and dependence on one another means survival.
When they grow up to the age of 15 to 16, the boys get out of their house and they basically build their own hut for their future generation.
Traditionally, a young man marries the daughter of an uncle. Over time, he can take multiple wives, so they can populate several grazing areas. How many children does a Himba woman have in her life?
You can have up to 10 or up to 20 as it reaches you, as you can support them all.
Right. The women get married young, but learn their elaborate grooming rituals even younger. It's well known in Africa that Himba women don't use water to clean themselves. Water can be scarce here. Instead, they spread a red ochre mixture called ojize all over their hair and bodies. It comes from grinding this red rock into very soft powder. So then this powder is mixed with the fat and the gum, and then it's put all over the body.
Yes.
It occurs to me that there's really not that much difference between the Himba women and a lot of the women that I see walking up and down the streets of Beverly Hills or Manhattan, wanting to be as beautiful as possible. It is a rare privilege to be invited into a Himba woman's hut to see her daily application of the ochre mixture. Moro, how are you? This protects them from insects, the sun, and it seems from aging. It's hard to believe it, but she is Edison's mother. This fat and resin and ochre, when it comes off, the dirt and stuff comes off. It kind of takes all the stuff out of your pores. Essentially, you're putting on a mud mask all the time. The women in our country spend big dollars putting a mud pack on, and then you wash it off, and your face is really clean.
Yes.
Very lovely.
Maybe if you want to come and sleep here at night, she will also apply the ochre, and then you sleep with her, you will also getting the ochre from her.
Edison's mom just hit on me. That's awesome. I am very flattered, but we are working this evening. Oguhepa. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? That has never happened so directly and matter-of-factly. It's interesting culturally that a mother in front of her son would say something like that to a one-day friend. But it gets even friendlier than that with the Bizarre Foods First, when the head man offers me a wife. But first, dinner time. Oh, look at this. Heart, lung, trachea, tail. This is northern Namibia, where the remnants of the Himba tribe live the way their ancestors have for thousands of years, treading lightly, taking only what they need from the land.
Ask Benson, what can I do to help with dinner?
Maybe if you can help them with firewood.
Yeah. I've been lucky enough to learn that the fastest and best way to break the ice is just do a little work.
Go.
Do I put it by the fire?
There's nothing superfluous here, like their ankle bracelets, part decoration and part body armor.
That's also protect them against, walking at night or during the day looking after goats. They go through the bushes, into the grasses, and they're afraid of maybe they might step on the snakes.
Of course.
The number of lines also indicates how many children a woman has. Their hairstyle telegraphs a woman's status. After a girl reaches puberty, her braids are pulled back from the face and coated with ojize, the ochre and fat mixture. Once married, she fastens a headdress made of animal skin on top of her head. The women perfume their clothing and blankets using an ancient method. Edison's grandmother allows me to watch.
So this bark is from a very special tree, and she gets it hot and then uses the aroma of the smoke to perfume her body.
There's no electricity, no plumbing, no clocks, which means time for grooming, tending the children, creating the jewelry and baskets they sell to tourists, and moments of spontaneous joy.
It seems like everyone stomps and gets very excited, then each person sort of does their own little thing.
Just celebration.
Just celebration. Oh, your mom is going nuts. Your mom's going nuts.
Yes.
I love it. Are there any rules about who dances when, or you can just go?
You can just go.
Really? Beat that! Beat that!
Then it's time for the serious business of preparing dinner. From slaughtering to cooking in the most elemental way. I'm here to participate, not just watch. They traditionally kill the goat by crushing its windpipe. I've watched this method before, and it takes as much as 10 minutes, but I only last 5.
I will tell you right now that from an uncomfortability standpoint, you're certainly thinking about it more now. I don't think I can do this anymore. Edison, it's all right if I cut its throat?
Yes, they said that will be the fastest.
Yeah.
Kill the meat, bring it back to the cave.
In the Himba tradition, animal life is respected, and their innards are believed to reveal the future. Only the village shaman can divine their meaning.
Say, this is where they
He
look.
interprets the path of the bloodline through the animal's organs.
As this red blood moving into this, if it's going here and here is going straight, all problems have passed by.
Apparently, this goat predicts good luck and good eating. It will be dinner for the whole village, but the men who do the cooking get first dibs on the choicest organs.
Oh. Well, there's a big pot. I can see some lungs. We usually take the fur off, but I'm anxious to try it.
The Himba have strict conventions about who can eat what part of the animal.
Here the liver is only eaten by men, but not by women.
Really?
Only the men eat the liver.
The intestines are reserved for the children. Women get the meat removed from the bone. Daylight is short at this latitude, and soon the cooking fires are the only light. The head man has some questions for me which reveal that our American culture is as foreign to them as the Himbas is to us.
And a man can marry up to 4 to 5 women as rich as you can.
Really?
And how does it work in your country?
In our country, you have one wife at a time. Tell him, my wife, if I married another woman,
Yes.
she would do to me what we did to that goat.
to cut your neck off.
And then a question which seems simple on its surface, but is really quite profound.
What Benson is asking the Hermie is asking whether you can remember which direction is your country.
I'm that way.
It's quite a long distance, you know.
Yeah.
So you think that you might not remember where did you came. I thought like you are in the middle of nowhere.
Thank him for that. That's a great gift. You should always remember where you're from.
Benson gives me the honor to call the village to dinner. As the women and children gather from darkness, the headman quietly makes me an offer I must politely refuse. It's both surprising and flattering. He suggests that I take his 16-year-old daughter as a wife.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I've just been given a wife. Fantastic. Nice to meet you. Thank you. I have to decline, but it's very, very sweet of you. Unbelievable. It's a bizarre foods first.
They are unfazed. It's all very natural, and the focus returns to dinner.
Look at that. That's beautiful boiled goat ribs, intestines, trachea, the tail. Oh, man. There's not a person on the planet who eats meat that wouldn't think this is absolutely melt-in-your-mouth, delectable, delicious. The fact that it was cooked with all the different parts in there and bits of the hide, you can taste all that in the meat. But I don't mind. It's really good. Tell Benson we're very, very grateful for being able to share a meal and spend today with you. Good night, everyone. Good night. Okahepa to you, too.
And it's goodbye to this Himba village, a living reminder of humankind's shared past as they keep the modern world at arm's length. It's a fitting end to this trip, which spanned many eras. From Namibia's ancient history to descendants of expert tribal hunters who now protect animals in the wild. Through the German colonial-era clothing still worn by women running smiley dens, to survivors of apartheid, to the modern industrial oyster industry, and the bustling capital city, which barely takes notice of the living history in its midst. And no matter what time period you're in, remember, if it looks good, eat it.